Welcome back to Deeper Than Most, guys. I'm your host, DJ.
And I'm your host, Sam.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite show,
Deeper Than Most. And,
Almost dropped my phone.
And this whole mango setup is getting a little out of hand. He's growing and he's getting big.
Listen, don't worry about it.
He's like all up in the way, so we're figuring things out. We're figuring it out. But, yeah, we're trying to figure out how we want to set up the background and what we want in the background.
But
in due time.
It's coming, guys. Just be patient.
Yes. But today we are on episode 60 and this is a special episode.
It is.
Not
a special,
exactly.
But it is a very...
This is something we've been talking about briefly, just sprinkling little seeds about it, Mm-hmm. And something that we've been really excited to bring to Deeper Than Most, something that we feel is important and needs to be heard.
This time, guys, we're bringing you episode 60, A Step Back into Slavery.
Yes. So, we don't have a DOM for today, but we're going to jump straight into this topic because there's a lot to unpack here. So, according to ushistory.org, life on the fields meant working sun up to sundown 6 days a week and having food sometimes not suitable for animals to eat. Plantation slaves lived in small shacks with a dirt floor and little or no furniture. Life on large plantations with a cruel overseer was oftentimes the worst.
And I can only imagine that.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
And we're going to get deeper and unpack a lot of this shit because not a lot of people know about the real side of history. The real side of slavery.
You're not wrong.
Well, yeah, but I meant slavery.
But, and so now we're going to give you guys a quick history lesson. Many will attribute the beginning of slavery in America to be in 1619. And this event was when the White Lion ship brought approximately 20 enslaved Africans to the British colony in Jamestown, Virginia.
And we know about Jamestown.
Yeah.
Well, most people know about Jamestown.
Yeah,
not everybody.
I'd say a good handful of people know.
Right.
Throughout the 17th century, European settlers in North America were dead set on using enslaved Africans as a cheaper, more plentiful labor source. Fucking insane.
This video, I'm going to be pissed off the whole time.
I'm telling you.
I already know.
It's super disgusting.
It is. Yes, that's the word, disgusting. That's really all it is.
One of the many factors in this takeover to be in effect was a simple belief that it would be easier to control enslaved Africans than to control indentured servants or poor Europeans.
Yes, and also with that, remember how I was telling you the other day, the colonizers tried to enslave Native Americans as well.
Yeah, they wouldn't have that shit.
But they realized that they couldn't because Native Americans had the opportunity to flee and be free and go back to their people. Why? Because it was on their land. It was in America. So, of course, their people are here. And if they were to run away and become free, they can go back to their tribe.
Exactly.
But where they kind of lucked out with African Americans is they couldn't. Where are they going to go? They can't go back to Africa.
They were miles.
They can't swim over the ocean.
Miles and miles away from home.
So it really put Africans at a disadvantage in the situation, and in so many other ways. It's really tactical how they did this. Yeah. Very tactical. And not gonna lie, around this time, Africans were selling each other too.
Yeah,
so that's why a lot of the colonizers were able to just easily buy some slaves, but then they would also take slaves.
Yeah,
as well.
That slave trade shit was insane.
Something serious.
Yeah.
Though there is no definitive proof, historians estimate that between 6 and 7 million enslaved Africans were imported to the New World during the 18th century alone in total.
Wow.
So just overall, over the whole span of the slave trade and bringing Africans to America, about 6 to 7 million is what historians believe.
Cramped up in these tight ass fucking...
Not in one ship.
Not in one ship, but I'm just saying, cramped up in these tight ass ships,
Shit was crazy. And inhumane.
Yeah.
This violent taking of peoples, in turn, deprived Africa of some of its healthiest and most able-bodied men and women of the time.
Basically crippling a fucking nation.
Yes. It's crazy to think that just another nation or a group of peoples can do that to somebody.
Yeah. With no remorse.
Right, exactly. Between 1774 and 1804, all northern states had abolished slavery on a large scale. However, it was still a very prominent practice in the southern states, which we all know this. But not to say that, like, there wasn't weird shit going on in the north, because there definitely was. Watch them.
Please watch it.
We be
the
telling
north,
y'all.
The west, it's all fucked. The whole
U.S.,
The whole country.
The U.S. Constitution at the time acknowledged slavery and deliberately counted each slave as 3/5 of a person, denying them any real human rights under the law.
I never understood the 3/5 compromise.
Right, why not like half?
Why is it 3/5
or a third?
Right.
Like, yeah,
what
I don't
does that
know.
even mean? How do you? Oh, okay.
I don't know.
But
that shit weird, ain't it?
It's weird as fuck.
Weird as fuck. Doesn't make any sense. I don't know how you can be 3/5 of a person.
I ain't never heard of it.
What docked the 2 points? I don't know. I don't know if I want to know. Even though Congress outlawed the African slave trade in 1808, the domestic trade of slaves grew exponentially. Soon after this change, the slave population in the U.S. tripled, and this is over like a 50-year of a time span. But the fact that it literally like tripled and that's what made it up to 6 to 7 million people is insane. That's a lot of people.
I mean, they was going over there and getting them.
Feels like everybody.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there was less people like in the world population around this time too.
I would assume so. There was so
much shit.
There was so much shit going on, like the Spanish flu. There was all type of shit going on. So yeah.
Crazy, just crazy. By 1860, nearly 4 million slaves were in the U.S., with over half of them living in cotton-producing states of the South. Okay. So that would be like Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, Virginia, that area, that region, Or in Louisiana, too, probably.
Yeah. And now we're going to get into some import conditions. The slave coast, located in West Africa between Senegal River and Congo River, was the main trading hub in Africa at this time.
And this is what we were talking about earlier, how Africans, they was trading each other too and selling each other. So
they was trying to get...
But I don't think it was to the same degree or any more harsh than what the colonizers were doing. I'm referring to these white folks as colonizers.
I mean, that's what
they were at the time.
That's all they were. Colonizers, savages, whatever you want to call them. Nations that would trade would keep the captured in factories where they were kept prisoner until a ship would come to take them across the ocean.
That sounds like chickens in a chicken coop or on the way to get slaughtered.
Yeah,
like
that shit is crazy.
That's insane.
Crazy as fuck. And
imagine like the fear of going through that, living through that. You don't know what's to come.
Exactly. Slaves were purchased from African slave traders, or they were captured and packed onto boats to be exported to various other parts of the world, not just the U.S.
Isn't that insane? I didn't know that.
That part alone, part alone is fucking crazy to me too. It's scary.
But why Africans? Yeah. I always wonder, why this certain group of people?
Well, the theory is genetics,
because they're strong.
Yeah.
But when you say that, it makes me think that why weren't Africans the apex, top of the pyramid? If they're really the strongest, the most able-bodied,
it's more or less
most athletic.
It's a mental thing.
Most spiritual, probably.
It's a mental thing.
Well, I don't know. Native Americans are very spiritual.
Yeah.
And a lot of other cultures are as well. But still.
Well, see, it's a mental manipulation tactic. That's
how were they able to let people just manipulate them like that?
I don't
if
know.
they were the strongest.
I don't get it. I don't get it either. But that's
crazy.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Of course, though, the ship conditions on the voyage to America were horrid. Oftentimes, half the cargo.
And cargo, we mean people.
Referring to people. Would die of starvation before reaching a new shore. If it wasn't starvation, others would die from dehydration and some by suicide.
That sounds terrifying.
Super fucking terrifying.
All of them sound terrible.
Yeah.
Starvation. Ugh, I like to eat. Imagine not being able to eat.
Yeah. The whole ride.
That you need to eat.
Yeah.
Dehydration, a bitch be thirsty. And I know being dehydrated does not feel good.
It is not a
pleasant
feeling.
And under the ship at that.
Speaking of dehydration,
packed with dead bodies around you, shit, piss, everything. Like,
and the longer it goes on, the worse it gets. You start hallucinating.
Right,
you start losing your shit.
That's true. And then suicide, and by suicide, I'm assuming I don't know how they would commit it. Whether they make their way to the top of the deck and jump off, or what the case was there.
I don't know.
That's just a lot to endure.
Yeah.
And you're not even to the destination yet.
Exactly. Slaves were seen as expendable, and merchants were able to throw a slave that was sick overboard because insurance would pay for slaves lost at sea.
That's crazy. They had insurance for that shit.
They had insurance. Wow.
And so you could really just be mad one day,
I didn't know that.
You know, just not like this certain slave and throw them overboard and say that they were sick.
Yeah.
Because what proof do you have? There's no camera.
Exactly. If they make it to land, they are sold for less than it costs to carry them. What the fuck?
Yeah.
So these people that went through all this and...
Yeah.
Okay.
So to transport the slaves costs more than it does to actually sell them individually. They don't sell for as much.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
That's fucking weird.
Yeah. 17th and 18th century African slaves in the U.S. mainly worked on tobacco, rice, and indigo plantations along the south coast of America. I don't know what an indigo
I was just about to ask. Do you know
plantation is? I think it's like wheat, or maybe that's the cotton.
I don't know.
Let me see what an indigo plantation is, just so we can get a clear explanation.
I ain't never heard of that. I always knew like the cotton, the tobacco, and the rice, but I've never heard of an indigo plantation. Or maybe it is.
It's a shrub.
Huh.
It's literally just a shrub. That's weird.
Huh.
So they just had them out there tending the shrubs.
Wow.
Like, think about that.
Right.
Tending the shrubs. Just
okay.
Whipping their ass.
Yeah.
Over shrubs. Rice. Tobacco.
Becky.
That you don't even need.
Don't even need that shit.
That's crazy. Like we said earlier as well, the south coast of America would include the Chesapeake Bay colonies in Maryland, Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, etc., etc. Just really the southern states.
Mm-hmm.
In the antebellum South, slaves made up to a third of the southern population. That's a lot.
That's a good bit of the motherfucking population.
That's a lot, and that means that's a lot of slaves.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure the South was more, not polluted, but like populated than the North at that time.
Oh yeah, because this is around the time like it was Civil War, motherfuckers was breaking off and doing all that extra. Yeah. So,
half and half.
Yeah.
Many slave masters had no fewer than 50 slaves at a time.
They shouldn't have had any.
Right, and what do you need 50 slaves for? How do you keep track of 50 slaves? Well, they had overseers and whatnot, but...
Yeah, it's a lot of different weird shit.
The goal of a slave master was to ensure that their slaves were 100% dependent on them. This was done through restricting their everyday movements and freedom and prohibiting them the right to read and write. And we all know this as well. Just fucked up shit. It just makes me so mad. It's so fucked up.
It is.
And unnecessary.
And to think this shit wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't, no. Most slave masters would rape their enslaved women, and those who were obedient were rewarded. Those who rebelled were brutally and inhumanely punished. Just all bad. All bad. Like, y'all know this. All bad.
And for those of you that don't, come on now.
And to know that they like raped enslaved women as well, it just adds more fuel to the fire.
And still looked at them as inferior, although they were like...
But you were like lusting after them and fucking taking advantage. It's just not cool at all. Never has been, never will be. Ugh, just disgusting.
It's weirdo shit.
It's disgusting.
How did they keep control? Slave masters would create hierarchy amongst slaves through skin color, gender, and job duties. Ooh.
This is crazy and so true.
Yeah, and this is why there's a deep-rooted like colorism within the black community because of shit like that.
And that's a whole other topic.
Episode.
Yeah, we could talk about that another day. But yes, it is deeply rooted in our culture and our society. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, and it still lives on today because it still holds some type of truth and weight into today, which is crazy to think about. Yeah. Like, the proximity to whiteness is the goal in the black community. And whether that is through dating somebody of the white race, or whether that is being a lighter skin color, or just whatever brings you into the proximity of whiteness. And that's what people strive for. Yeah, it's sad.
Think of a pyramid. At the top would be the house slaves. These slaves were privileged, usually of lighter skin, and most were women.
Yeah, some were men, but mainly women, doing the housework, like cooking, cleaning, all that.
Fucking, the middle
for people that didn't give a shit about them, like, would kill them in a second.
That's what I'm saying. For motherfuckers that don't care about you, you got me in your house around your kids being,
man, they couldn't have me as a slave.
Ah, boy, listen, little boy,
I would have beaten them here.
Sit your goddamn. Nah, and what's so fucked up about that is the fact that like these slaves that were in the homes with these children build like connections with these slaves and all that. And even though the kids were fucked up.
Yeah, I'm gonna say them kids were racist too. They were raised.
They were fucked up, but a lot of them like
the kid. We've seen Underground Railroad with that little boy. He was a black little boy, and he was still like what am I trying to say? He was still brainwashed into hating black people. Yeah. Yes. So it's not far-fetched to think that they were teaching their kids
and
the ropes. Like,
it's fucking crazy.
Did you say it's still going on today? Yeah. It is. It truly is.
It is. It's fucking disgusting.
It's definitely more under the radar, but it always finds its way to the surface. Mm-hmm. And that's what people don't want to talk about.
The middle would consist of skilled artisans, who were usually houseworkers as well. Skilled slaves were the ones who could read or write at a low level or had a skill of some sort.
And whether that be playing an instrument or, whatever the skill is, sewing, craftsmanship, just whatever.
Exactly. All shit that, let me not get on the fucking soapbox. But these skills were for entertainment purposes or would be easy to teach to someone else. At the bottom of this hierarchy would be the field hands. Bottom tier workers, usually of darker complexions, mostly the stronger, able-bodied men, were working in the fields, given that the work was considered harder. But there were women in the fields as well.
And kids. And elderly.
Yeah.
Everybody was out there. And I'm pretty sure on every plantation, majority of the master slaves were field hands. Like, I'm sure there were a couple of house slaves, but majority of the slaves that somebody would have are working in those fields. Mm-hmm.
Elderly slaves would work either field or in-house, and a lot of times children as young as 5 to 6 years old would be doing field work from sunrise to sundown alongside the adults. That's fucking disgusting, bro. Like,
that just sounds so sad. No childhood, no
nothing.
Love, family, happiness, nothing. Freedom, like, hello. Ugh, it's just so frustrating. And of course, we all know about slavery and we all know how bad it is. But just to sit here and actually pinpoint,
digest it, and talk about it, it's very upsetting.
And to go bit by bit, like, what was really wrong here?
Exactly.
And there was a lot wrong.
Yeah. This hierarchy that was created kept slaves divided and less likely to organize an uprising against their masters.
And it worked.
That's fucking crazy.
It really worked.
Yeah. In what world, bro? Like, whose idea? Like, who just said that and was like...
Yeah, I don't know how this shit started. Like, who was like, this is what we gonna do?
Like, the whole concept of slavery. Mind you, yes, black slavery is the forefront. It is super fucking sad and tragic. But, like, slavery as a whole...
In general,
is the most fucked up shit I've ever seen.
Yeah. Like, I can't even fathom how somebody can sleep at night knowing what they're doing.
They own another person. Like,
yeah, and not even just one other person. A whole fucking town.
A generation of people.
Family of people. Like, damn. It's crazy, but it's gonna get even crazier because slavery is just not something to take lightly, and it's not something to joke about. Like, this shit was real, and this shit was serious, and we should not forget it ever. It should never be forgotten. It should always be taught, and it should always be,
dissected.
A forethought. It shouldn't be an afterthought. Like, this is something that has affected society even into today.
Right.
And it still goes on today. But we're going to get into that once we get back from our sponsor.
See you soon.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free and it's easy to use.
There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast straight from your phone or computer, making it the best user experience around.
Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more, making it so you don't have to upload to each individual platform.
And the best thing about it, you can make money straight from your podcast with no minimum listenership.
It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
So please, download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. And that's Anchor.fm, spelled ANCHOR.FM.
So what are you doing? Download the free Anchor app now. Alright, now we're going to get into the different types of work, one or the other. So we're going to get into the two main types of work. There's housework and field work, and we're going to start with housework. So with housework, there were typically gender-based positions. Mm-hmm. Most housework duties included cooking, cleaning, and for the men, driving for the masters, or like working in the stables, like with their horses and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So like cleaning the stables, working with the horses.
All the shit that motherfuckers
people don't want to do. Cleaning the shit, yeah. Women in the house would sew, cook, quilt. They would clean the house, clean the property, watch the master's children, and serve as a midwife. And what's crazy is with the house slaves in general, not even just the women, mm-hmm. but mainly the women, mm-hmm. a lot of the house slaves had to deal with, for one, them shitty ass kids, mm-hmm. for two, the master like abusing them sexually, mm-hmm. and for three, the master's wives would instill their hatred. Like, they would throw it all onto the house mm-hmm. slaves, mm-hmm. and mainly the women, of course. Mm-hmm. Probably because they know that their husband is, like, fucking them.
Right,
I mean...
Right.
Shit. Like... But that doesn't give you a right to...
Not one.
Do the things that they did. Because them... the wives were something else of this time.
Dirty little motherfuckers.
Yeah. Most of the house slaves dressed in hand-me-downs or modest clothing. Basically, they were better dressed than the field slaves, which just right there causes even more separation. Like, you've got the field slaves wearing rags, literally. Mm-hmm. And then the house slaves get to wear old master's clothes. Like, that just doesn't even sound fair or right in any sense.
Shit ain't it.
Even if it's hand-me-downs.
And I don't want that shit.
I know, but like,
I know.
They wanted that shit. Yeah. You know, like, they wanted to feel like a part of society. They wanted to feel like people, not fucking property. Yeah. Sometimes house slaves lived in the main house with the family, or they had a simple cabin with a few furnishings. So still getting way more than what field workers were getting. Mm-hmm. They get to live in the house. Sometimes they got to eat the leftovers that were cooked. Not always, though, but sometimes. It depends on who it is. Other house duties included being a butler, a maid, a seamstress, a waiter, or a launderer. So doing laundry for people, waiting on them, making their clothes. Ugh. Literally, they didn't have to do anything. Like, what were they doing in their day-to-day lives, the masters and their families?
Being entertained.
I guess, but like, damn.
Yeah.
That's just insane to me.
It's
like,
fucking crazy.
Everything is being done for you. What do you do? How do you even make money to buy the slaves? I guess because they bringing in the money and the work.
Yeah, because they're doing all the producing and all that. So then once they're done with that, you sell that and then it's a cycle.
It's insane.
Which comes from the back of the fucking field workers.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Field work. Most work upwards of 20 hours a day, 6 days a week. Oof.
Oh, this is what I was going to add. So the field workers worked 6 days a week, practically the whole day. And when I was doing this research on the difference between the two, house workers had to work every day. And they had to basically be on call. So like if the master or his wife want something in the middle of the night, they got to bounce up and get it regardless. Right. Like they don't have a day off pretty much. And that includes holidays and everything.
Right.
So they both got it bad, but in different ways.
Mm-hmm. They usually tended to the harvest of cotton, sugar, rice, and tobacco. Others would clear land.
Why you said it like tobacco?
That's how they would say it. Mm-hmm. Others would clear land or plant seeds.
And also with the field work, you know how it says they worked like 12 hours a day, 6 days a week?
Yeah.
Well, when they got home, they still had to like make food for themselves and like tend to their children. Yeah. Like, when do you have time to sleep? There's only 24 hours in a day.
There was no sleep.
How are you expected to work on lack of sleep, lack of food, lack of comfortability, lack of happiness? Like,
exactly.
Whoa, let's talk about a toxic work environment. And you ain't even getting paid. I just can't.
They often lived in shacks with dirt floors and no furniture. Field hands often would eat rabbit and okra, sometimes corn, and the rabbit would be split amongst dozens at a time.
One rabbit.
And rabbits, like, yeah, you get...
And they don't even have a lot of meat on them.
Not at all. Most of it's bone.
Ugh, crazy.
Rarely was there enough food to properly feed everyone.
Right, how could there be?
Exactly.
And I heard that sometimes they would get bacon. Every once in a while.
Yeah, I've heard that too. The appearance of field slaves was apparent. They were typically dressed in rags for clothes and would usually have their clothes fixed or created by another field hand.
Like we said, once they get home and they got 4 hours left in the day before they got to get back up and do it again, they had to do all that shit in the meantime.
Exactly.
How?
It's impossible. It's literally impossible.
I'm coming in on Tuesday naked because I'm getting my sleep. I'm not about to sit up here and sew my rags back together because you whipped through them.
Right.
No. What?
And you just expect full quality work out of me.
Yeah, I just can't.
Majority of the slaves on the plantation would be field hands, but the worlds between a field hand and a house slave were vastly different. House slaves were kept out of the majority of the slave population, often making them out of the loop and community.
Just that separation once again.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
So weird.
It's weird as fuck.
And it really just it comes back to that proximity to whiteness. And I feel like even back then, the white people knew. Like, they were like, yeah, y'all look a little bit more like us, so I guess, we'll have you around our children and, you guys can wear our hand-me-downs.
Oh, you're more civilized now.
Right. Exactly. Just shit that don't make any type of sense at all.
No. And you mentioned earlier how the house workers, they don't get days off, but apparently field workers, they were sometimes getting Sundays off, and they would also get a couple of holidays, maybe Christmas and the 4th of July.
Right. If their masters were filling up to it. Slavery and the law. 19th century legal codes made slavery more brutal than ever before. Slaves were not allowed to legally defend themselves against any type of violence from whites. Ugh.
That shit right
You have
there.
no power whatsoever.
It's just
because you're seen as an object, as property, not a person.
It's so fucking cowardly though, because
it is.
Like the white people would literally do stupid ass shit. And
for what reason? There doesn't even need to be a reason. They would just do it just to do it.
Do shit like that. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Slaves had no legal standings in the courts, and they weren't allowed to testify unless it was to go against another slave or a free black person. So basically, just to go against each other. Yes.
It's like I said, bro, it's a lot of manipulation.
It is. It's very tactical how they did it.
Yeah. Just like systematically breaking a society down and then...
I like how you said that because it's still happening today. Just
constantly,
modern.
constantly just
breaking them down.
Yeah, just manipulating them one way after another. Whether it's like,
in one
you can't
group
do this.
and another,
you
like,
can't do this, or
they're
you're
grouping
close.
them.
You go over here because you look like this. It's stupid.
It's insane. Slaves could not enter contracts of any kind. Yes, we know this. Property can't sign a contract, and they couldn't read and write, so they couldn't sign anything.
Mule, goddamn it.
Huh?
I want my 40 acres and a mule, goddamn.
I swear, where are the reparations?
Exactly.
They could not own property since they were considered property themselves. Slaves were forbidden from leaving their master's property without clear permission. And even then, I mean, their master could easily turn around and like call up their boys and be like, hey, so-and-so ran away.
Yeah.
Just because.
I gotta run away.
Right, exactly. I mean, not that they could actually call. I like how we just did that.
They can't call, but like they did. It was
Spread
weird.
the word.
It was weird how they did it. So
Spread
the
that shit quick.
The way they would do it, they would either send like messenger boys, or they would like send dogs, or like shit like that. So
signals and shit.
Yeah, it's just a little weird shit.
Weird.
And then the next person in the next town would get a whiff of it, and then go.
And then word of mouth.
Yeah. Punishment. Punishment was always unethical and heinous, usually for minor offenses like disobedience or backtalk, or even if the master was simply having a bad day. Whipping was the primary source of punishment. And
we'll put some pictures of backs that were scarred.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, it's so terrifying to look at, honestly. It morphs and changes the skin.
Yeah.
Like, these were deep ass wounds.
Yeah, those whips do not fuck around.
For something as simple as not moving quick enough. Like,
and so it's so weird to me because, like, looking at this and, like, thinking about how a lot of black kids grow up, like, the main thing is, oh, you don't talk back to me, or, oh, this and that. Or
and they get whipped.
Yeah. And I'm like,
even today.
Yeah,
how black people, like, raise their kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. You would think that they would have taken a step away from that just because, but
it's ingrained.
Yes, exactly. Over generations of time.
Shit's crazy. Serious crimes, such as attempting to run away, stealing, retaliation, once again, master having a bad day, branding, mutilation, and death were various options of punishment. Jesus fucking Christ.
It's crazy. And not gonna lie, a lot of people wonder, like, if I was a slave, I'd be, like, getting mine, like, I'd be figuring out a way.
Listen.
It was possible. People were actually, like, stealing little breadcrumbs when they could,
Definitely.
like, getting their little wins.
Yeah.
And I really like that because it's like, you think you're getting over on me, but low key, like, I'm getting, mine a little bit. A little bit. You don't know I'm stealing this bread.
I can bet you top dollar there are a lot of slave masters that got poisoned by those goddamn house slaves.
I hope. That would be amazing.
I'm betting, bro.
That would be the way to goddamn free everybody.
I'm betting right now.
Have the master's whole family over for dinner for Thanksgiving
like,
or
I'm
something?
betting it right now. I didn't even
think about that. That's
I don't even
smart.
want to, like, say it didn't happen, because what if it
probably did, yeah.
Exactly.
But, if they were caught stealing or trying to run away, branding them, mutilation, and death, like...
And this goes back...
And death is usually by hanging, and public humiliation,
right.
even in the last moment.
My bad. Yeah. And I remember how earlier you were like, how did they keep track of them? Yeah. Branding, the mutilation, all that shit.
Oh, yeah.
Different ways.
That's true.
Yeah. The slave code, which was unspoken knowledge, but always enforced. Slave patrols, militias of free white men.
Yeah, they were militias of free white men.
Disgusting.
With nothing else to do.
Nothing. They were created to oversee and enforce the slave code.
And you know what slave patrollers were? Police officers. Of the time. But they weren't policing everybody. They were policing the slaves. Policing black people.
Sounds eerily familiar to what's been going on here.
Yeah.
Past couple of fucking decades.
And they were the ones enforcing most of the whipping and just the punishments. Yeah. With nothing else to do, like...
Just bothering people.
Yeah.
Slave patrols were very common on plantations because to ensure the black population didn't revolt against their masters, strict racial policing was put in place to keep things at bay.
Literally. What is going on today?
Disgusting.
Strict racial policing. That was kind of just a brief overview of what slavery was, like what actually it entailed,
Man,
I guess you could say.
if we were to ever try to go...
And it goes deeper than that.
If we were to ever try to go into a deep dive of this shit, this would be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, it would have to be like split up or something. Because it's so polluted. There's so much, so many layers. So we're going to step away from that, and we have some true stories of slaves, of slavery, and freedom. And I'm really excited about this because freedom was another big part of slavery.
Exactly.
Was just finally being free. And even though freedom exists today, it just doesn't feel like freedom sometimes,
Right. Right.
So we have 3 stories, and the first is Henry Box Brown. In 1848, Henry's wife and children were sold and shipped to another state, separating the unit. With this, Henry was determined to escape slavery. With the help of a free black and a white shopkeeper, he desperately shipped himself from Richmond to Philly in a wooden crate.
Oof.
Yeah.
Damn. Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And get this. March 23rd, 1849, Brown wedged himself into a 3-by-2-foot box labeled dry goods. His journey was via wagon, steamboat, and train.
Man, look. I don't know.
3-by-2.
I don't think I've heard of him. I've heard the story, but I don't think I've heard of him personally.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing this man had to be at least 6 foot and had probably a little weight on him. But to stuff yourself into a 3-by-2
literally
foot box,
cramped.
yeah, you was determined.
Can't move.
Yeah.
While in the box, he only had a few biscuits and some water.
What the hell was he eating them?
At one point, his crate was placed upside down on a steamship. He was upside down for about 90 minutes,
Oh my God.
and this caused his eyes to swell, and he nearly passed out.
Exactly. All the blood rushing.
Yeah.
Jesus.
You could die from that, too.
Yeah.
Luckily, 2 passengers flipped the crate over to use as a seat, and, it kind of saved them in a sense.
Yeah, it did.
Because if he would have stayed like that, that would have been it. Unless he would have been able to, rock that bitch. But I don't know.
Why you did that?
Henry traveled in a box for 27 long hours.
A day and 3 hours.
Yeah. Once free, his story made him a celeb in New England, and years later, Brown was in Great Britain to host a stage act of his escape. 1875, he returned to the U.S. and became a magician.
Let's go.
Yeah.
You might as well, because what the fuck?
Right.
That's the greatest trick of all time.
I swear to God. And for each show, he would climb back into the same crate that carried him to freedom.
Oof, that's not traumatizing, sir?
But
I mean...
But the fact that he used his pain as power.
Exactly. You turned it into a great story.
Yes, I really like that story. And I didn't figure out if he ever got reunited with his wife and children, but I would hope that was a part of his...
I would hope so, too.
His ride to freedom.
Yeah.
Because that was the whole point. So... But to be a magician and to literally climb back into the same crate.
And I know I say this shit a lot, but black people literally have done and created everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
A black magician. Come on.
In 1875.
Come on. What? Our second story is Jefferson Lewis Edmonds, and he is the creator of the Liberator newspaper.
Ooh.
Jefferson was born enslaved in Crawford, Mississippi. He learned to read and write at the Freedmen's Bureau and later became a teacher.
Damn, that's impressive too.
Beautiful. In approximately 1900, Edmonds started the Liberator newspaper, which ran for over 14 years. And this is from 1900 to 1914.
It's a long time.
The paper was named after famed abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison's newspaper of the early 19th century. So, yeah, the century prior, this had already happened, but he just brought it back in his own way. Edmonds' version was known for supporting the working class black Angelenos and championing civil rights.
Nice. A pioneer, if you will.
Hell yeah. In 1909, Edmonds was commissioned by the LA Times to write an 8-page spread on the state of the black LA community. So
that's cool.
This is actually cool because when he did this, his article was about Booker T. Washington and all of his contributions.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's what got it so So out there.
So much, yeah.
Mm-hmm. This special edition was an effort to commemorate President Abraham Lincoln's centennial birthday, or his 100th birthday.
Wait, that nigga lived to 100?
No, he had died, but like.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that in history.
No, he died. He had, got, how the story goes.
Oh, he went crazy.
He got shot in the back of the head. Yeah, he got shot in the back of the head in a movie theater.
In a movie theater?
Well, in a theater.
I was about to say,
movie theater.
That don't make sense. So our last story is really interesting. This one, I just had to include this because I was like, whoa, this is insane and hella smart.
I've heard of this. This is cool.
So William and Ellen Craft. December 21st, 1848, William and Ellen Craft planned to be free. The two had gotten married in Macon, Georgia in 1846, but were enslaved by different masters. So they were separated. And this was something that was very common as well. Mothers would be separated from their children. Families were separated. Just, and the worst of the worst. And it was also known that if you were like being sold and one of your family members was sold into a southern state, the likelihood of you ever seeing them again was slim to none.
Yeah. Wow.
Slim to none. Like, knowing that, like, you probably just had a baby or whatever, and they're literally being snatched from your hand, and they're being sold to Mississippi, Georgia, wherever, and you know that you'll never see them or hear from them again. Ugh. Like, that's the worst of the worst, you know? And whether it be your husband, your child, your mom, whatever, like, ugh, that's crazy. It's so crazy. Right. And there's no remorse. They didn't feel bad, like, nothing.
Exactly.
You know?
That's what I'm saying. They just thought this shit was okay. Like,
yeah. William and Ellen could not fathom being completely separated without a promise of reuniting, so they devised a plan to flee from the South and make their way to Philly. Ellen was light-skinned, so they used this to their advantage. Ellen cut her hair short, dressed in men's clothing, and wrapped her head in bandages to pose as an injured white man. Wow. The bravery. With this plan, William would play the role of her loyal slave. They rode trains and steamers through the South. At one point, Ellen was seated next to a friend of her master.
ooh.
Damn.
Ooh, they good.
I'd be nervous as hell.
Nervous as fuck, but that's good. That's good.
I'd be sweating bullets. But luckily, she wasn't recognized. So he must not have got a good look at her before she...
Wasn't looking at all.
Yeah, when she was like on the plantation.
Yeah.
Their journey to freedom allowed them to rub elbows with upper-class whites and lodge in fine hotels. They got to Philly on Christmas Day and found shelter with an abolitionist before continuing to Boston. The fear of slave hunters encouraged them to set sail for England, and there they wrote out their experience, which became a huge success, and they raised a family together.
Hey, man.
That is an amazing story. Talk about a love story.
I'm telling you. Smart as fuck, too.
Hella smart.
They knew them.
Nobody would have suspected a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, and then at some point, they were trying to, like, get back on a train or whatever to continue the journey. And Ellen had her arm just, like, in a fake sling, you know, to make it seem like she can't write because her arm's injured. Well, one of the train conductors, like, wasn't really buying it because he was asking her to sign her ticket so that way they can board the train. And I guess somebody, you know, just a random free white man had like seen this little tobacco going on or like this little issue, and so they offered to sign for Ellen with whatever alias name, you know, they were using. And that's how they were able to get on. So they almost got caught because she couldn't write.
Damn.
Something so simple.
Damn, that's cold.
I would have scribbled like fuck. I would have been like,
because how you gonna tell me this ain't my signature? Like,
right, exactly.
You don't know who I am, like.
Exactly. So that was William and Ellen Craft.
I liked all three of these actually.
They were all very good.
Fire. A black
And
magician,
different.
a newspaper creator, and a love story for the centuries.
books.
The centuries. And now we're gonna look at some more quick facts. Resistance to slavery was not just organized plots and rebellions. And this one's interesting because like we kind of covered it earlier. They would perform everyday rebellions such as stealing food, sabotaging equipment, or feigning illness to get out of work.
That'd be me like hell. I don't feel good, man.
Yes, I'm in the field. That shit's crazy.
But you can't do that though.
Yeah,
They'll beat your ass.
Exactly. They'll hard down be pissed. Like, what you mean you sick? Why you, nigga? I'm
How
tired.
you make the overseers sound like a black man?
Yeah.
Sometimes it was black folks though.
Let's let's go on.
What were they called? The Uncle Toms? The ones that would snitch on black folks
Yeah,
if
they
ran
called
away?
them Uncle Toms, but Sambos were the ones that were really the problem. But that's a whole different story.
What's a Sambo?
So, Sambo is the one that was actually like a hero.
Like off of off of Django. You know Samuel L. Jackson character. What would he be considered? Because he was a snitch and he
He would
hated black
necessarily
folks.
be an Uncle Tom, but like
Uncle Tom,
looking
okay.
at the historical aspects of it, Sambo's more of a bastard than Uncle Tom is. But that's. In 1831, an enslaved Virginia man named Nat Turner started a revolt that saw the death of his owner along with 60 other white people in a 24-hour period. And
That's awesome.
And being completely specific.
Nat Turner's very popular though.
As fuck.
And well known.
And being completely specific, it was around 75 other black people black men specifically that he gathered.
That he rallied up to help him.
Mm-hmm.
And this really jolted the community. Everybody was scared. They
Yeah.
were shaking in their boots.
Yeah.
They was like, oh, these niggas fighting back. What do we do?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know what to do. Crazy.
It's crazy as fuck. And
The
then,
fear. All this hatred that these people have toward you too.
Yeah.
Man.
You knew.
Talk about getting your
You
reparations.
seen them coming. You knew it was the end of you.
I swear.
Religion played a big role in the lives of many enslaved men and women.
And what people don't like to talk about is how these masters and slave owners introduced Christianity to slaves and used it as another tool to keep them enslaved and to manipulate them and to hurt them. But in today's day and age, black people love Christianity.
America the Great, huh?
But also back then, they loved it as well, and the slaves would use it on their Sundays. They would use their Sunday to, host religious ceremonies or go to church. They would worship, they would sing, dance, all of that. So it was seen as something that was good of the time.
It's just so weird reading stuff like this.
But how it was introduced is like sketch.
Manipulation, man. It's all.
Yeah, and that religion also kind of scared them too, is because they didn't want black people to think that they were equal or higher than the white race.
Exactly. That's why you got white Jesus.
Having this faith and this hope kind of like scared them. Mm-hmm. Free black people and other anti-slavery northerners helped enslaved people escape via the Underground Railroad. And we all know about the Underground Railroad.
And if you don't, watch the show. You'll figure it out.
Yeah. I feel like the show didn't really talk about it though. It
wasn't
not
even
about that.
Not
the
enough.
railroad
It was about
for
that
real.
little boy.
And that girl.
Right. But the Underground Railroad, for those of you that don't know, it is something that was famed by Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and people like that. So they would basically just create a network and help enslave that.
And it really worked. It did a lot.
Worked. They would help enslaved people get free.
Yes. Between 40,000 and 100,000 enslaved people reached freedom due to the Underground Railroad system. And the help. That is insane. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of people. Mm-hmm. That's wow. And I feel like that gave them hope as well. It's like, damn, maybe I could get out of here. Maybe I could be free. And a lot of times with older slave masters, their slaves were offered or promised freedom once the slave owner died. But usually that didn't happen. Right. Usually the family of the slave owner would just sell the slave so they can get their quick buck. So even after death, nothing was promised, nothing was held true to what they were saying, just all bullshit, honestly. In the 1930s, the Federal Writers Project was created to capture memories of the nation's last living slaves. The Great Stain by Noel Ray shows the many horrific first-hand accounts of the slave trade and of the travel through the Middle Passage from former slaves, slave traders, and slave masters. So getting first-hand accounts from every aspect
Mm-hmm.
of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where we got some of these accounts from, honestly. But it's just so crazy to think that they were able to capture these first-hand accounts.
Yeah.
And that slaves were still around. Like, this was not long ago. This was 1930. And there were still slaves living. Like, former slaves, of course.
America the Great, huh?
In the 30s.
America the Great.
This is like past the 20s, past the flapper era. Like,
exactly. This is Great
this
Depression.
is the 30s.
This is the Great Depression.
That is, and only because, let me stop. Yeah, that was a step back into slavery. And, wow, just a lot.
And also, honestly, guys, if you want a more in-depth view of like what slavery was, the only interpretation that I can think of that was pretty damn close is Roots. If you've never seen Roots, I suggest you check it out. It centered around this slave named Kunta Kinte, and it goes through his life as being a slave, becoming a slave, getting captured, and getting free. So, check it out.
Yeah, and also, if you want us to do an extra deep dive into this topic, we can definitely do this down the road and dedicate like a couple of parts and do like a little series of just different aspects and like the nitty gritty of what it was. Yes. Also, before we jump into our wind down, maybe we should give out like a recommendation or two of some slave movies that we like. I love Django. Django's really good.
A great fucking movie. That movie was well done.
Django is probably one of the best. Not a fan of 12 Years a Slave.
I'm not a fan of it either.
But Underground Railroad, definitely worth the watch.
There's one with Denzel Washington in it, and I don't remember what it's called.
Is it Harriet?
Look up Denzel Washington. There's a slave movie in there. You'll find it.
In his catalog.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people don't like to watch slave movies, but I feel
like it's necessary.
Yes.
I feel like you have to.
Exactly.
Because how can you understand the history of this country and not talk about slavery?
Even though they are, dramatized and they're different and they don't really get into the nitty gritty of how horrific it was.
Uncomfortable for white people, but
right. Let's get into this wiggity 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 wind down wiggity wiggity. Let me stop.
We in there. All right. So the first one is, what is the most surprising thing to you about slavery? The fact that shit even took place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my answer.
I agree. But also, no, yeah. Like, why was it a thing?
Yeah.
In general. And why is it still a thing? Slavery still exists today, but in different ways.
Because I can give you a couple of examples. But go on.
Why now, number 2? Would you survive life during this time?
If I was alive during this time, I damn sure would try. I damn sure would.
Would you try to be free, or would you just try to kind of like do your thing and get by?
I'm running. I am running.
Yeah, but that don't end well for many people.
I'm getting there. I'm gonna try it anyway. I'm gonna get free somehow. If I got to climb in the box, if I got to try to swim, I'm getting free. Like, it's happening.
I guess I would probably do what I can to get by, because I would probably be too scared to risk it.
You gonna be in the house.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I'm the one that got to work.
You gonna be in the house. Wait a minute. I ain't choose this. Look, see, this is where it starts. What I'm saying is, I'd be stealing, I'd be poisoning, I'd be whooping the kids, like.
You see how that was two totally different extremes, though. You see, that's the point that I was trying to get across.
Literally, but I mean, I'd be scared, but I'd be getting mine. I'd be,
drop a little mustard seed in the coffee every morning.
Yeah, piss in their Cheerios from time to time.
Piss in their oatmeal.
Just to get my little win. Like,
hey, that reminds me.
I made it special for you.
That reminds me of The Help, bro. That's so funny.
Literally.
I had shit in it.
Like, come on now, you asking for it? Because I'd be scared to run, and if it's me, I would have asthma. So what the fuck am I gonna do? Where am I gonna run? They didn't have inhalers back then. I would have been shit out of luck.
Well, see, from what I've heard, garlic and onions, like they warn off the smell of the dog, so I can just douse my little ankles in there.
Your ankles?
My little ankles.
Why your ankles?
Most of my body, but mostly my ankles.
Wait, why?
It just warns off, like it throws their sense of smell off. Like the dogs and shit throws their sense of smell off.
Okay, but fuck the dogs. What about the people that are
I
fucking
can
following you?
I can hide from the people. It's the dogs that I'm worried about.
That's what a lot of people thought, though.
Hey, but
And there'd be people just like in the woods patrolling and shit.
that's so.
And you don't know
That's
where you're
so
going.
weird.
Like,
Hey, I'm gonna figure it out. Cornroll my shit up. Show
I
me
swear to
the-
God, put some rice in there. Anyway, all right, go.
Wind down number 3. How can antebellum slavery be compared to the modern slavery we see today? Well,
Ooh, can I go first?
go ahead.
Colorism and the separation and the proximity to whiteness. It was alive then, and it's alive and well now.
And it's kicking.
And I don't think it'll ever go away.
It won't.
Unless aliens come down and, you know, like we had this conversation in one episode, it wouldn't be any more about race, gender, none of that shit. Once aliens make their way to this planet, it's going to be, all right, y'all, we all humans, so we need to fight whatever the fuck this is.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the only way.
Coding. The fact, and it's different now than it was then.
What,
Yes.
the slave code?
No, like coding in terms of black people having, like you said, the proximity to whiteness, that having to adhere, that having to pretend to be the closest thing to white you can be.
Assimilation.
Just fit in. Yeah, it's fucking disgusting. Mm-hmm. So now we have, like, say we go for a
In
job
the corporate
interview.
world.
Yeah, in the corporate
Gotta
world.
put on your white
We've had
voice
this conversation so many times, and it's
Yeah.
so weird to me. That it makes me very uncomfortable to sit and have to do it every time
Right.
you go to an interview, every time you go
You have
out.
to put on a fake
You have to-
persona
yeah.
and not be able to bring your true, authentic self
It's not
to the
even.
forefront.
It's not even about, like, back then. It's the hand-me-down clothes. It's the eating from the table. But
Yeah.
now it's the I have to talk like this. I have to look like
Back
this.
then it was the kissing ass
Yeah.
to not get killed.
Right.
And now it's the kissing ass
To get
to
what
not
you-
die, to
Right.
live, to pay your
Exactly.
bills, to eat. Like,
Exactly.
it's crazy. So our last wind down is, what if the roles were reversed?
Boy, you don't go out there and pick that goddamn cotton now. I'm gonna get your ass right.
Oh shit! Honestly, I don't think the roles could
Nah,
ever be reversed
nah.
because
I
I
don't
don't think black people have that much hatred and
I don't think they would have ever done that.
cynical mindsets in us to execute something like this. I don't think black people care enough.
My thing is, like, motherfuckers were minding their business.
Yeah,
So I don't
that's
think-
what black folks do.
I
They
don't
mind
think-
their business.
I don't think they would have just up and like, oh, fuck it.
So I
let's
don't
go
think
take
this would have
over.
been
Yeah,
reversed.
it wouldn't have happened. Like, I don't think it would have happened at all.
No.
Because, like, I'll put it like this.
But if the roles were reversed, I still don't think it would be as brutal as the way it actually was. I don't think black people would carry it out to the extent that the white population did of this time.
And I'm gonna put this into perspective for you white people so you understand. That
Damn,
black
don't
people,
say it like that.
I don't care, bro. Like, I'm gonna put this into perspective. 16th century Europeans, dirty as fuck. Never bathed, never knew what a bath was. Black African, like this rich African dude, he's a Moor, African Moor, came over and showed them, hey, this is what you do. You take the frankincense, you take the myrrh, the water, you do your thing. So that right there alone, a rich black man teaching these dirty ass white people how to bathe their ass.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that they would have just been
Helping
trying.
them.
Yeah.
Not telling them you're savages.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run
Not
you
trying-
down. Like,
Their first initial thought wasn't conquering; it was
Exactly.
helping and providing
Exactly.
aid. Like,
yeah. Same thing with the Native Americans.
exactly. And those
When the
people,
colonizers came, they were just trying to help them out,
and
help
those people
them
deserve
learn the
so
land,
much more too.
and they got fucked.
Yeah, and still are
Yeah, still get
They're-
fucked. Now they're forced to be in little,
subjugated to fucking reservations.
yeah, to little areas in certain states. Ugh, it's just a lot, y'all. It's a lot, and America really has a lot to deal with. And honestly, we could add one more wind down. Because, we be watching The Cut and Jubilee and all these little YouTube shows.
It's nice.
So one of the questions on The Cut was like the Ask 100 people, what would reparations look like to you? So I'm going to ask you, in today's day and age, what would you want to see as reparations?
I need money.
I swear to
I
God.
need
Me
money.
too.
Like,
and land.
Albeit, I'm a huge advocate for humanitarianism and like giving people like equal rights and like better education. That's a given. But that money, like,
makes a bigger difference.
that money makes it happen.
Lasts
like,
a little longer.
Cause like,
and not even just like a one payment. No, I'm gonna need
over my
recurring monthly.
lifetime.
Yeah.
Lifetime.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Minimum 5,000 a month.
Shit, 10 million, bitch. Y'all got it.
But yeah, definitely money, and I would say land as well.
Yeah, land is.
I'm gonna need that land.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna need that
Start
so I can do
Wall
whatever
Street
I
all
want to
over
do.
again.
Yep, so I can do whatever I want to do with it. So yeah, that's what reparations would look like to us then.
Leave a comment down below. What would it look like to you?
Yeah, hand over the green and what's in between, because I mean, what else would count as reparations?
Exactly.
Us turning them into slaves? Like, no,
It's
that's not what we want.
It's
Like,
not gonna. It's gonna make us worse than them.
Exactly. Yeah, somebody got to be the bigger person.
But that money is like, come on, Joe. What's up?
Yeah, I know. Like, anyways.
Student debt, bro. Take it away.
Yeah.
But
so that was it.
That's been episode 60.
Yeah.
Damn, we had 60
Crazy.
goddamn episodes.
I know, 60, yeah. It's insane. It's a lot. And more than that, because of our short stuff bonus.
And 60 episodes, you know what that means. You have 59 other episodes to check out.
Yes, plus our short stuff bonus episodes, which we will be dropping another one next week. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be an F&C, actually.
Nice. Where we at? And this has been episode 60. A step back into slavery. I've been your host, DJ.
And I've been your host, Sal.
Catch us next week on
Deeper Than Most.